Hello everyone, and welcome back to another Dwarven Tavern review. This time, this is a book, imagine that. This book, I'm not even really sure when this one was released, but it's fairly new to me. Actually, I picked it up at the last Gen Con. The wonderful folks at Paizo treat the Dwarven Tavern so nice. They're such good people. Like, what don't you have? And I'm like, that one, and they're like, here. So there it is. This one is called Mythic Adventures. Now, it goes for $39.99, and of course it's from Paizo, and it's a Pathfinder book. But you know, it's 3.5 compatible, OGL compatible, so you can play it with any system that's 3.5 OGL. So, what is Mythic Adventures? Well, it's a really super interesting concept. It's kind of like the Epic level handbook for 3.5 D&D, but Mythic Adventures is more period. It's well. Let me read a little bit from this thing. Everyone knows what is Mythic. Everyone knows the story of the blacksmith's son who, after taking up arms to defend the village, continues on to become a renowned adventurer, and of the young elf who spends years studying musty tomes and practicing simple spells before she heads out into the world to seek ancient lore. These are stories of everyday adventurers. You may know one yourself. Risen from the ranks of the common folk to make a name for themselves in places harsh and unforgiving. Which, actually, I'm going to take a brief aside here because I got into a really interesting discussion on one of my videos. Actually, it wasn't my video, it was Taverneer Lyrics video about rolling up with the method that we use sometimes here, where you roll 3 dice to take the highest, roll 2 dice to take the highest, and then roll or 4 dice take the highest, 3 and take the highest, and 2 and take the highest to get your stats from 3 to 18. And that usually winds up with some pretty good rolls, as you would imagine. But then someone argued that if your stats are that high, why even bother rolling? Why not just take all 18s and be done with it? Because, well, number one, that's stupid. And number two, they argued that if your stats were too high, then that removed all of your character's personality and the player's ability to personalize that character. And I was I was as polite as I could be. But that was really dumb, a dumb statement. Because if you are so limited as a player that you can't take someone with straight 18s and make them completely unique, that's a redundant. If you can't make them unique, because unique is an absolute, then you are too limited to play in, at least my group, because we actually had a campaign in which all the characters woke up they woke up in some kind of a laboratory. They didn't know who they were, anything about themselves, and they all had straight 18s, and they had to figure out who they were. And each one of them brought their own, as they began to understand and get an idea of what their abilities were, or their skills and feats and stuff like that. They just knew things, and they didn't know how they knew them. Their personalities started to blossom, and it was one of the most genuinely interesting campaigns I've ever played in, and stats were not an issue. They played They were all of them. They were rocking those +4s in every single ability. And then they found out, of course, that they were genetically modified corn. No, they were genetically altered for some kind of a failed super soldier program, and they little tidbits of information kept coming to them so they could figure out who and what they were and what they could do. And Taverneer Lyric, she they said, well, how are we going to get out of this room? And she's like, well, she went over and she said, oh, that lock, that's a Furman 186 Mark 7. I can do that. And she took a thing and she pried off the faceplate and started doing stuff. She's like, how did I know how to do that? And she opened the door electronically. She picked the electronic lock because she knew how to do it. And then at that point in time, I told her, well, you have a craft or a knowledge of electronics skill of plus. I think she was rank. She was like rank 9 in knowledge of electronics, and so that was no big deal to her. So anyway, if you don't like, you stick with whatever method that you like for rolling up stats. But if your stats or lack thereof don't allow you to make an individual out of your character, then you should probably do something like play something like Mario or something, and just leave the table topping to people with an imagination and creativity. Not that I'm judging, but I totally am, right? Anyway, that was a little aside. Our characters are more than numbers. Characters are people too. So, what is Mythic? Well, Mythic takes your average adventurer and it goes beyond adventurer and more into like legendary or mythic characters, sort of like the difference between D'Artagnan and the Three Musketeers as your hero types versus like Perseus or Bellerophon of the mythic demigod types, Hercules and such. So this book allows for rules of, it's a cut above your average superpowered hero. So it's kind of a weird concept, but it's really, really cool. Your journey begins in chapter 1 with these rules for creating a mythic character. This chapter includes rules for the 6 mythic paths characters can select upon gaining the mythic power. It starts with a discussion of mythic characters, including a number of common abilities shared by all mythic characters as they advance in tier. So right there from the onset, it attains a different level of levels. It doesn't go by levels, it goes by tiers. So your 6 different paths are Archmage or Archmage. Which do I prefer? Archmage, either one. Sorry. The Champion, the Guardian, the Hierophant, the Marshal, and the Trickster. And each of these have a different, obviously a different skill set, a different purpose, and a different path. Finder. Just to give you an idea of what's going on, they've included a glossary. This chapter is 7. This book is 7 chapters, and it's just got so much. I mean, it's amazing. It's a little over 250 pages is where the index is, and it's just I mean, it's just so like over. You know, you got Pathfinder, and then you got over here, which reminds me also is that this book, the Bestiary 6, I didn't mention it in the last review, but in the Bestiary 6, they have mythic creatures that that have some of the mythic uh, uh, abilities and characteristics, which is incredibly cool. I mean, this is freaking cool. So anyway, they're weaving a very intricate universe here. So mythic rank, mythic with abilities seemingly beyond those of ordinary mortals. A mythic character or mythic monster becomes part of a story that plays out on a greater scale than ordinary people can understand. An attack, spell, or other effect is considered mythic if it originates from a mythic source, such as a character or creature with a mythic tier or rank. Your mythic path is, I just described that. Your mythic power. Each mythic character can call upon this basic mythic ability to influence destiny and fuel other abilities. So you draw on your mythic, you get so many mythic power points. And your mythic rank is similar to tiers. I'm sorry, I'll stop doing that. Mythic ranks are used to describe the approximate mythic power possessed by a monster. All creatures with a mythic rank are considered mythic for the purposes of feats, spells, magic items, and other abilities. Mythic ranks range from 1 to 10. Okay. So your mythic tier. Notice I didn't do that. Characters advance in powers by gaining tiers. It's made it very difficult because it keeps saying that. Each of which grants new abilities, and I'm going to go over some of those abilities. So it's kind of like levels, but it's not. And then just for an example, I'm going to give you some examples here. At first level, at your first mythic tier level, you get a mythic feat. And you become hard to kill, you get mythic power, you get surge 1d6. Okay, so what do these mean? Let's see, hard to kill. Whenever you're below 0 hit points, you automatically stabilize without needing to attempt a constitution check. If you have an ability that allows you to act while below 0 hit points, you still lose hit points for taking actions as specific or is specified by that ability. Bleed damage still causes you to lose hit points when below 0 hit points. In addition, you don't die until your total number of negative points is equal to or greater than double your Constitution score. Holy crap! So, just that when you're a first tiered mythic, you're automatically just like above everybody else. No more 0 to 10, no more taking time to stabilize, none of that. Then you get mythic power. Mythic characters can draw upon a wellspring of power to accomplish amazing deeds and cheat fate. Which, watch out for the inevitables on that one. This power is used by a number of different abilities. Each day you can spend an amount of mythic power equal to 3 plus double your mythic tier. This amount is your maximum amount of mythic power. If an ability allows you to regain the use of your mythic power, you can never have more than this amount. Makes sense. Then there is Surge, which is not the guy that parks your car. Surge, you can call upon your mythic power to overcome difficult challenges. You can expend 1 use of mythic power to increase any d20 roll that you just made by rolling a d6 and adding it to the result. So it's kind of like action points, but it's not, because you've already made the roll, you see that you've missed it, and you can do a surge and get it. Very heroic, very epic. Then, okay, it's got a whole list of abilities that you get. And then, like recuperation, it's pluses, bonuses on surge. Mythic saving throws, force of will. Unstoppable at 8th level, and I'm just kind of, zooming through this. At 8th level, you can expend one use of Mythic Power as a free action to immediately end any one of the following conditions currently affecting you. Bleed, blind, confused, cowering, dazed, dazzled, deafened, entangled, exhausted, fascinated, fatigued, frightened, nauseated, panicked, paralyzed, shaken, stricken, staggered, or stunned. Attorneys at law. Any of those things that you have, you can get past it with an expenditure of Mythic Power. Okay, that's amazing to me. To me, that's just the coolest thing ever, because it literally makes you unstoppable if you have Mythic Power to spend, of course. Then at 9th tier, you become immortal. And once immortal, if you are killed, you return to life 24 hours later, regardless of the condition of your body or the means by which you were killed. You can be burned, you can be hanged, you can be torn apart by hamsters, you can be shredded by an overzealous potato peeler. You name it. You get killed, you come back 24 hours later. When you return to life, you aren't treated as if you had rested, and you don't regain the use of your abilities that recharge. So you just kind of pick up where you left off, exactly where you left off. And this ability doesn't apply if you're killed by a coup de grace or a calpe de grace or critical hit performed by either a mythic creature or a non-mythic creature holding a weapon capable of bypassing epic damage reduction. So there are, the only way to, there's so many stories in this, the only way you can kill him is to have, Jack the Giant Slayer, which happens to be an axe or something that has that ability, or get another, like the Clash of the Titans kind of thing, right? So it's just cool. So in order to gain tiers, okay, and I'll admit I haven't read this book as thoroughly as I probably should have, and I apologize for that. But I've got a lot of books to read and other things that I have to do. A character's mythic power is classified by tier, with a first tier mythic character already being significantly more powerful than a non-mythic character of the same level, and a 10th tier mythic character possessing nearly godlike puissance. Mythic tiers are similar to levels in a class or prestige class, in that the powers gained at each tier are added to all those that came before. So it's an accumulation of power, of course. But tiers are gained in a different manner from levels. A character gains a new mythic tier by completing a number of trials, Herculean, as it were. You may think Herculean. You may think that. I allow it. But a character gains a trial is a different. Reading skills is fundamental. A trial is a different task that adds to the legend and story of your characters. Achieving a new mythic tier occurs independently of experience point progression, though you will also gain experience points for the various encounters you complete as you progress through your trials. Trials are moments in the story when you must rise above the deeds of lesser heroes. These moments become critical junctures in your legend. The GM decides what qualifies as a trial, and it's up to you to complete it as you would other adventurers. You might not even know you're attempting a trial until it is completed, and the GM informs you on your mythic character sheet. Note it on your sheet. You should make a mark of that, because that that large insectoid creature that you had eat you so you could blow it up from the inside. You're now a higher tier man in black. Though you'll likely get an inkling when you find yourself facing particularly challenging foe or attempting something that most would find impossible. So, that's how you gain tiers, and it has number of trials per tier. You know, your second tier you have to do a trial. Your third tier you have to do 2. Your fourth you have to do 2. Your fifth you have to do 3, and so on. All the way up to 5 trials in order to get up to 10th level. So, there you go. Now, and then the book goes on with the various types of mythic creatures, character types, like the Guardian, who is like a monk, so forth and so on. Of course, the Champion, fighter type. You know, you can imagine the Archmage. I can't decide. The Hierophant is druidic, priestly in nature. The Marshal, so forth. So all those are very in detail. The Trickster, very roguelike, and so forth. Then it talks about mythic feats, which, you know, if you go without washing your socks for long enough, your feats will become mythic. And just to give you an idea, where was that one? It was, I'm trying to find it. I thought it was extremely cool. Just for an example, I can't find the one I was looking for, but alignment channel. Welcome to the alignment channel. All mortals, all the time. The power of your faith harms all creatures that follow the alignment you abhor. So if you're chaotic good, then lawful evil, people would... the benefit is your channel energy affects any creatures with the alignment chosen when you took alignment channel, but grants only half healing or half damage to those targets. Or grants only half healing or deals only half damage. Alternatively, you can expend 2 uses of mythic power when using alignment channel to affect all targets of the chosen alignments as if they all had that alignment subtype. So, pretty cool. It's not the one I was looking for, but it's pretty cool. And it has a very, very large list of feats, and you know, and it's all very legendary. It's just so cool. I just love it because, and if you have someone who prefers or who tries to roll up overpowered characters and is continuously asking you to bend the rules or to break them or to do something that is not in the best interest of your campaign, this is the perfect book for that, because you start out at Mythic, you start out overpowered, and they have overpowered challenges, and it balances the players. You get your players here who are going like, I want a half troll, half dragon humanoid, and you're trying to think of how, you know, that would have had to been one crazy threesome to make a half dragon, half troll, half human. And so they can get the breath weapon and the regeneration, etc., etc. And this is just the perfect book for that. It has a long list of spells that allows you to augment things like Shocking Grass. Augment it if you spend 2 uses of mythic power, and the free grapple or disarm combat maneuver is successful. The target is staggered until your next turn. This is an electricity effect. So you're using normal things, but you're doing it in an epic way, in a mythic way. Just like a normal guy would be, you know, with a shocking grasp, and then a mythic guy would go, and with a mythic Bazirn, Vomit Twin. That's what usually happens after you've been to one of those all-you-can-eat places. Right? So anyway, the mythic spells are mythic, and they're perfect. Sorry. I'm trying to be a mythic reviewer, and it's leaving me dumbfounded. Mythic magic items, and you can imagine what those are like. Actually, you don't have to; they're right here. Bastion of the Interior, for example, +1 rallying heavy steel shield, prominently displays the sword and emblem of the god Tomedy, and functions as a holy symbol for her worshippers. When using this shield, the wearer reduces the extra damage she takes from anarchic weapons, smite good, smite law, and unholy weapons by her tier. So, to a minimum of 0. So, if you're 5th level, or 5th tier, or 6th tier mythic, you use this +1 sword, then, and somebody does smite good for 6 or 10 points, then you immediately reduce that. You take a damage. You get a damage reduction for that amount by your tier. So it's pretty cool. And none of these things are like they're not necessarily epic level stuff. Like the shield was just a +1 shield, but it does extra based on your mythicness, mythicality, mythicosity. It does something that is hard to imagine likely, in that it captures a above the rest kind of a thing in all layers of gaming, from down here to like 1st level mythicness, to all the way up to epic level mythics. That's why the experience points and the mythic tiers are separate. So you can have a happy, healthy character growing up in a mythic environment at 1st level. You don't have to start them out at 10th, 12th level. Then of course they've got the mythic creatures, which like the Greater Barghest, the Aboleth, the Cockatrice, the Great Cyclops, the Merilith, the Nalfeshni, the Vrak, various demons, devils, dragons. A mythic dragon. Sounds redundant, doesn't it? And it gives them a flavor. It gives them a tincture of mythic that makes them mythic. I'm probably going to watch this video with a counter and see how many times I say mythic. What happens? How does a person create a mythic character? Well, the moment, and it describes it here in the first part of the book, the moment a character gains her first mythic tier is called the moment of ascension, or simply ascension, and is usually concurrent with an extraordinary event. Generally speaking, the GM determines this event, which has many implications on the story of the character. Ascension determines the source of a mythic character's power, and though this doesn't affect the types of abilities she gains, it can influence future choices and role-playing decisions, obviously. So it's not a set in stone, although it can be. It's not a set in stone method. It's up to your DM to decide whether you're a GM, and it's up to your game master, I'm just going to call it dungeon master because to decide when you become mythic. So it's like here is overpowered. And some ideas are some very common means of ascension. Artifact. Character comes into contact with an unstable artifact that unleashes some sort of power. In the movie Chronicle, right? Well, that was more of a superhero thing, but in the movie Chronicle, they found that big star that with the veins inside the solid thing. And it gave them all this super telekinesis that just kept getting more and more powerful. Fated. The character was born under an auspicious sign, such as a planetary conjunction or lunar eclipse. And the first thing that comes to my mind with this is American Gods, right? I don't know if you've seen this yet. I think it's episode 2 is out. The first one was weird. But that the dude seems to be fated for something. A godling. Perseus, Bellerophon, so forth. For some reason, that's the only 2 heroes from Greek mythology I can think of. Who's the dude that fought Hyperion? Anyway, a godling, granted, a divine agent or other incredibly powerful being calls upon the character to act as its representative. I choose you, and it, mythic, and there you go. And then you get the mythic ability, and then you have to follow Hercules, although he's a godling. But you have to perform these Herculean tasks to gain in your tiers of mythicity. And then passed on. The character is present at the death of a powerful, perhaps even mythic creature. And its final moments, it passes on its power to the creature, granting mythic abilities. Okay, well, Green Lantern, that comes to mind. And then also Assassin's Creed comes to mind, where that DNA is passed on. So yeah, and then of course there are many other things, I would assume. I think these are plenty. You could be a fated, granted godling who's the son of another godling who finds an artifact that blows his mind. So that's all of them together. I think it's a fantastic concept. It's very well executed. It adds an entirely new. I mean, it's not just your average expansion. It's not an expansion of place or like another world setting. It can be anywhere. And it's not an expansion of, well, here's another character class, here's more character rules. It's an entirely different direction that you can play it at all levels, and just make your characters, and satisfy that person who's addicted to the overpowered. So I'm going to give this book, it's another great Pathfinder book, and I'm going to give it 5 axes because I think it's a beautifully executed book. The writers at Pathfinder, at Paizo, are fantastic. The artists are, of course, fantastic. Although, Wayne Reynolds, he's a great artist. He really does a truly good job of capturing the stuff, but not my favorite. And he'll probably smack me when I see him at Gen Con this year. But there's just a couple little things like bows that and some of the weapons and some of the way the characters line of sight is and stuff like that. They're just a little off. It kind of bugged me. But there's a ton of artists. And they're all fantastic. And nothing. I mean, now, don't get me wrong. Wayne Reynolds his art is fantastic. But it kind of bugs me a little bit sometimes. So yeah, any one of the illustrations on this could be on a Magic card. I'm kidding. So again, that is Mythic Adventures from Paizo Pathfinder. Goes for $39.99, well worth it, and give it 5 axes. So, on behalf of the entire cast and crew of the Dwarven Tavern, I am your host, Dr. Jeff Gollins, and this has been another Dwarven Tavern review. And we wish for you to want for nothing but adventure. And at first I feared it, then I charged. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.